Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So much is going on in the Parsha, and a lot of what we focus on and what we hear about, whether in clear ways or subtle ways, is the relationships between fathers and sons. And the Parsha is revolving around it over and over again, and the one with Esav we touched on a little bit earlier, that we see this very tender relationship, this bond, this loving relationship between Isaac and Esav that ultimately shatters because of the blessing of covenant. And what we also see is, in a very subtle, nuanced way, the Torah is actually pointing us toward the relationship of Avram and Isaac, the father-son relationship of the first patriarch, Avram and Isaac, that we know was very troubling, and we know it ended on a mountain when God told Avram, kill him, and Avram was willing to. And so the trauma that happens at that moment informs the rest of Isaac's life, but it shatters the relationship with his father. And in this week's Parsha, we're reading about hidden, tremendous, powerful moments that have to do with that relationship, and it catches us a little bit off guard. So if we go back and we look at the narrative, there's another drought in the land, which always raises the question of, this land seems to have a lot of droughts. And Isaac leaves with Rebekah, and they go to Gerar, to the king of Avimelech, and they're going to wait out the drought there. And we're told that, in fact, he's flourishing. He's very successful over there, and it's going very well for him. And then suddenly the text moves us into this very long narrative about digging wells. And we're reading it over and over about he's digging wells. The wells were filled in. He's redigging the wells. Then he goes and digs new wells. And we're sitting there thinking, what just happened? Why are we suddenly so interested in wells, in the details of the wells? And the first thing that we have to know is, in the ancient world, digging a well is a land claim. It's not just, I want water. If I were passing through, I'd go to one of the wells that's already dug, and I would ask if I could share the water, and usually, yes, of course, everyone's sharing water. But when I dig a well, I'm staking a claim. It means this land is mine. So if somebody else is passing through, they don't have to see my tent. They don't have to know that I am living there. There's a well there. That means there's a land claim. So now we understand there's significance to the digging of wells. It's not just simply, I want to get some water. The text tells us all the wells that Avram had built previously in this same place had all been filled in. And they were filled in by the Philistines, by the Plishtim, and virtually disappeared. So the land claim has been erased, and there shouldn't be any trace of that land claim anymore from Avram having been there and having dug those wells. And once we're told about that, then the text tells us Avimelech, the king, comes to Isaac and says, you have to leave. You're too prosperous. It's causing a problem. So you have to leave. So now we have the erasing of the land claim, and Isaac, the son, is being told that he has to leave. Isaac leaves, but we're told that he goes and redigs his father's wells. And not only does he redig them before he goes, but he renames them, and he gives them the same names that his father gave those wells. A powerful detail of what he's saying about his father before he leaves the land. He then goes to a new place, we're told. He's digging new wells. The first well that he digs, we're told, causes a problem. It causes fighting between himself and the people that are around there. So he names the well Esek, which means dispute. I'm naming this because it caused a dispute. So then he goes somewhere else nearby, digs a second well, and the second well's causing even worse fighting. So he now names that well Sitna, hostility. And we're watching a pattern, a tracing of what's going on with these wells. And then he manages to move to an entirely new place. He digs a third well, and we're told that one goes well. So he calls it Rechavot, which means latitude, plenitude. And from there, he goes to Beersheba. And as we've been wondering, why is the text telling me all of this? It seems to be insignificant. We're never going to hear about those wells again. Why does it matter? But when we arrive at Beersheba, we suddenly go, oh, I see it. Because Beersheba is the key. And the reason Beersheba is the key is we've seen it before. It told us that when Avram came down the mountain after binding Isaac, first of all, he comes down alone. They went up together, but the text makes it clear they did not come down together. He comes down alone. And where does he go? After he comes down from that unbelievable event, it says he goes to Beersheba. And so suddenly we're thinking, oh, that's where Avram went after that defining moment for Isaac, and now Isaac has arrived there. He's come to the same place. And now I look and I step back into the narrative of all those wells. First of all, we see that what we're looking at is a reconciliation with his father's memory after what happened on the mountain on that day, after the shattering of the relationship. Because wells physically in the ancient world are land claims, but in the Torah, they're also very symbolic of the female. Because the well digs to, and we saw it in the Parsha as well, Mayim Chayim, the waters of life. And the waters of life exist within the woman, within the female. It's where all the babies are nurtured. It's where all that water will bring life from it. And the well signifies that deep in the earth, deep inside the female, are the waters of life. And so the symbolism of the well is the female. And now as we move past it and we say, what is Isaac doing? And we understand he's trying to reconcile with his father. And the reason that he's going about it this way is because he lost his mother because of what happened on that mountain. Sarah dies. And we're told that he can't stop mourning her. He's lost his mother. So the relationship and rift that was caused on that mountain with his father cost him his mother, and he's trying to reconcile. And that's the language of the wells. That's why he's headed to dig those wells. When we look at it, the text told us the wells that Avram had dug were filled in by the enemy. And that means not only is the land claim gone, the connection is gone. The claims, the legacy, the memory, everything that Avram had put into that, the connection to the female, the drawing of the waters, the living waters, they're now filled in. They're buried, and they're buried deep. Isaac has no relationship with his father, and that day it was all compounded by the loss of his mother's, and it's all represented in the wells. So he tries to redig, and he tries to reconnect. And he deliberately gives them the same names that his father did, because it's his attempt to reconnect with his father. And then when he tries to take the step beyond, saying, did I do it? Did I manage it? We now have those wells that were problematic. The one that said, no, there's still hostility there. No, there's still a disconnect there. There's still dispute there. You're not there yet, Isaac. It takes him several attempts until he finally is managing to dig that well of Rehovot, that well that says, now I have breadth of vision, I have latitude of vision. And only then does the Torah tell us he builds an altar to God and calls out in the name of God, because God was at the hub of everything that happened to him, and names are essence. And he calls out to God, and God answers, and for the first time, God speaks directly to Isaac. There was no direct communication before this moment, because there was too much of a rift and a break. And only when Isaac was able to reconcile do you finally have God iterating covenant to Isaac. By going through the process of the wells, Isaac's able to arrive at a place of understanding of his father's torment on that day. He understands this was not his father happily doing what he was doing. This was his father tormented by the relationship with God. So when we look at it and we say, then why is the text telling us all of this? And we understand that the message that we're getting is that we need to find a mechanism of reconciliation for difficult moments with the people we've lost. Otherwise, we're kept at a distance from our legacies, from our memories, from our connections that truly and rightfully do belong to us. We don't usually think of Isaac as a powerful patriarch, but in this moment, he is powerful and he is courageous. He teaches us the critical lesson so gently, we almost miss it. It's the wells. He's figured out what he needs to do in order to reconnect. When we look at that and we recognize what's going on with Isaac in redigging those wells, we see that what he's doing is reconciliation with someone who is no longer there. He's reuniting and finding peace with difficult moments in the past. He's choosing to enter a relationship of memory and welcome the opportunity to create a new relationship with the memory of the person that he had such challenges with. That's one of the most difficult things that anybody can choose to do because we don't have to do it. It can sit in memory quietly. It can sit there unresolved, and we will continue to live our lives, and it won't matter all that much, except we're disconnected. And that's what Isaac has shown us. He could not speak with God, and God could not speak with him until this was resolved. He was disconnected. In the end, he is able to build that altar and to call out to God. Avimelech comes to solicit peace with Isaac, and we're told of a final well that he digs. He finds fresh water, he digs one more well, and then it says he calls the entire city, the entire region, Beersheba, the same name his father used to name a small well. Isaac is able to stand where his father stood, accept a relationship with God, and then build something bigger, build a city. It's not that we have to reconcile with difficult moments and memories of those we've loved. It's that if we choose to do so, we might ultimately find that we've arrived at a stronger place.